This is Tony from the A Minute to Midnight team. 2018 is looking to shape up to be a very significant year. Look for wars and rumours of wars and a currency war. Also expect increasing turmoil on the streets and in Washington as we move towards world government and a new world order. The first time I ever heard the term New World Order was during the Gulf War. George Bush Sr. used it, and I knew right then that it was a significant move towards the fulfillment of Bible prophecy.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
I often hear people saying that the New World Order is being beaten back, that the elite are losing control because they have Donald Trump as the President of the US. One of the things I'm going to do is examine whether in fact that is true. Is Donald Trump fighting against the New World Order, or is he part of the New World Order?
Hey, look at this! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump taking down Mr. McMahon! Oh my God! The hostile takeover of Donald Trump!
I hear people with platforms saying that Donald Trump is fighting against the globalists, against the shadow government, and that Barack Obama is somehow the head of a shadow government seeking to overthrow the Trump administration. But is there actually any truth to this? Is Obama really leading a globalist rebellion against the Trump administration? Or is this all just a clever ploy and a distraction? First of all, I want to look at one of the key drivers behind the move towards a new world order, and that is Henry Kissinger.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis. This moment of crisis is also one of great opportunity. Huge crisis and terrible problems. But it can, I could see that it sees a glimmer in which it could construct an international system out of it.
I mean, what is it? Is it simply a world order that's defined by new interest and new mutuality of interest?
Well, that's certainly how you have to start. And I know the view that you start by converting the whole world to our political philosophy. I don't think that can be done in one or two terms of an administration. That's a historic process that has its own rhythm.
If you listen carefully to the words of Dr. Kissinger, you can hear that he is talking about converting people to their political philosophy, and also that it is a long-term strategy, because the drive towards a new world order is not new. It has gone on for centuries, only it's now coming towards culmination.
Look, there are so many problems in the world at this moment that can only be dealt with on a global basis. All of these issues necessitate a global approach. So you don't have to invent an international order. And so every country has to mitigate its pure national interest by the global necessities.
Those words by Dr. Kissinger were spoken during the early years of Barack Obama's term in office. Now let's fast forward to 2017.
But it's an honor to have Henry Kissinger with us. He's been a friend of mine for a long time.
Hold on a minute. Isn't Dr. Kissinger a globalist calling for a new world order, and isn't Donald Trump supposed to be fighting against these people? Yet here he is calling Dr. Kissinger his long-time friend. And if Kissinger represents the globalists and the deep state, then why is he in the White House? Why did Trump invite him to the White House?
Donald Trump is a phenomenon that foreign countries haven't seen. So it is a shocking experience to them that he came into office. At the same time, extraordinary opportunity. And I believe he has the possibility of going down in history as a very considerable president, because every country now has two things to consider. One, their perception that the previous president or the outgoing president basically withdrew America from international politics. Here is a new president who is asking a lot of unfamiliar questions. And because of the combination of the partial vacuum and the new questions, one could imagine that something remarkable and new emerges out of it. I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it's an extraordinary opportunity.
Did you hear Henry Kissinger mention any sort of a threat to the New World Order, his New World Order from Donald Trump? Or did he see Trump as having an opportunity to forward it? And as far as Obama goes, did you hear Kissinger praising Obama or lamenting the fact that he's gone from office? I didn't.
Henry Kissinger has been a friend of mine. I've liked him, I've respected him, but we've been friends for a long time, long before my emergence in the world of politics, which has not been too long. But we have been really in the, I guess you'd say, the New York seat a little bit, but we got to know each other very well. He's a man I have great respect for. It's an honor to have Dr. Kissinger with us, a man of immense talent and experience and knowledge. And I'm going to talk to him for a while, and we're going to learn a lot. But I can say from a world standpoint, and with many of the countries that Henry and I would talk about before the election, because I would talk with Henry before the election.
If Donald Trump was an outsider before the elections whom the elite, the New World Order crowd, the globalists didn't think had a chance of winning, then why did Donald Trump talk to Henry Kissinger before the election? He plainly just said there that is what he did.
So you may want to say something, and thank you for being here, Henry. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I didn't expect this opportunity. It's always a great honor to be in this office. And I'm here at a moment when the opportunity to build a constructive, peaceful world order is very great.
And there we have Dr. Kissinger basically calling for a new world order, though he doesn't call it New World Order, he calls it Peaceful World Order. But right there in the White House next to Donald Trump at Trump's invitation.
Today I sign an act of Congress authorizing intelligence programs vital to our security and creating a national commission to investigate the events of September the 11th, 2001, and the years that led up to that event.
Kissinger has held key positions for several decades now.
Today I'm pleased to announce my choice for commission chairman, Dr. Henry Kissinger. Dr. Kissinger is one of our nation's most accomplished and respected public servants. He worked here at the White House as National Security Advisor, represented America abroad as the Secretary of State for 2 presidents.
In order to really understand the drive towards a new world order and how it is achieved, there are 3 concepts you really need to grasp. The first one being ordo ab chaos, or order out of chaos, which gives the opportunity to actually create chaos in which you can bring an order, the order that you want from it. The second one is what is known as the Hegelian dialectic. And according to Wikipedia, here is a bit of an explanation. Hegelian dialectic usually presented in a threefold manner as comprising three dialectical stages of development: a thesis, giving rise to its reaction, an antithesis or antithesis, which contradicts or negates the thesis, and the tension between the two being resolved by means of a synthesis. In other words, you create two sides. You have a left and a right paradigm, and the goal is to present them against one another and then to bring the end goal which you want, which is the synthesis. And that is how they work. This is how the New World Order works. It's always worked that way. And the third one is as above, so below, as within, so without, and we will look at that later. Well, now I'm going to take you down a deep rabbit trail and show you just how interconnected all of this is, and who's connected with whom, and how John McCain is also connected with Henry Kissinger, and yet he's supposedly on the opposite side from Donald Trump. And then I'll show you who else is connected at an even deeper level. So be prepared to go down the rabbit trail and learn some things that may shock you.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Now let's look at John McCain. Here was an article in The Independent on October 31st, 2017 titled "John McCain Launches Coded Attack on Trump's Crackpot Conspiracy Theories. The senator makes a veiled critique of Trump's administration in a speech to Naval Academy students." It says, John McCain just destroyed Donald Trump. Senator John McCain has issued a veiled critique of President Donald Trump, warning future members to be wary of propaganda and crackpot conspiracy theories and the seductions of authoritarian rule. Down further, we have to fight against propaganda and crackpot conspiracy theories, Mr. McCain said. We have to fight isolationism, protectionism and nativism. The line appears to be a critique of Mr. Trump, who ran on a nationalist America First platform. If Donald Trump steps too far out of line or appears to be thwarting the plan, they will seek to remove him. Even if Trump is an insider, that's no guarantee of safety. JFK was from an Illuminati bloodline. So John McCain is supposedly against Donald Trump. Well, let's go now and have a look at John McCain and his connection to Henry Kissinger. The McCain Institute for International Leadership at Arizona State University has something called the Kissinger Fellowship. The Kissinger Fellowship upholds the core values of the McCain Institute's character-driven leadership programs. It focuses on developing the strategic skills of future foreign policy and national security leaders with the kind of principles that are the hallmark of Dr. Henry A. Kissinger's career. In May 2015, Arizona State University hosted an event honouring Dr. Henry A. Kissinger and introducing the Kissinger Fellowship at the McCain Institute. In conversation with Senator John McCain, Dr. Kissinger shared his insights and perspectives on today's global challenges. Based on his personal knowledge and involvement in so many historical events over the past decades, Senator McCain has relied on Dr. Kissinger's brilliant strategic mind and wise counsel for many years, since they first met in 1973. So not only does Donald Trump rely on Kissinger, but so does John McCain. And the chairman of the Kissinger Fellowship is none other than Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, the chairman of E.L. Rothschild LLC. And he is, in some people's minds, the current head of the Illuminati, though some people would say his cousin Jacob Rothschild is the current head of the Illuminati. But whatever the case, he is part of the incredibly influential Rothschild family, who are known to be globalists and known to be supporters of the New World Order. We will be looking a little bit more at Evelyn de Rothschild shortly, but not only is he the chairman of the fellowship, but his wife, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, is also on the board of trustees at the McCain Institute. Lady de Rothschild has been the chief executive of E.L. Rothschild since 2002. She's also a director at The Economist Newspaper Limited, which is they put out The Economist magazine, by the way. She also has numerous other roles and is on numerous important committees, including that Lady de Rothschild is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations in the USA, Chatham House in the UK, International Advisory Council of Asia House in the UK, and International Institute of Strategic Studies UK, etc. In 2000, she was ranked as number 4 on the European Fortune Most Powerful Women in Business. Without going into too much detail, it is pretty well known that the Council on Foreign Relations is a big part of the Illuminati's arm in the United States. Henry Kissinger himself has been a member of the Council on Foreign Relations since 1956 and served as a member of its board of directors from 1977 to 1981. Council on Foreign Relations member James Warburg to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on February the 17th, 1950 allegedly said the following: "We shall have world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent." The late David Rockefeller was also at one point a director on the Council on Foreign Relations. I find this quote from Larry P. McDonald, US Congressman, 1976, as very, very interesting and troubling. He said the following: "The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining super-capitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I'm convinced that there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent." The current president of the Council on Foreign Relations is Richard Haas, and Donald Trump met with Richard Haas in August 2015, and he said this about Richard Haas: "I respect Richard Haas, and I like him a lot. I have a few people that I really like and respect." Notable members of the CFR have included George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Warren Christopher, Zbigniew Brzezinski, George Soros, Paul Volcker, and of course David Rockefeller. And transnational corporations and banks dominate: Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, General Electric, Google, Lockheed Martin, Merrill Lynch, Shell Oil, and many others. This is from an article on a website I discovered called Another Day in the Empire. And you'll see that there is an enormous list of CFR and Bilderberg members that Trump has appointed to his administration. And here is a list of them, including Rex Tillerson and Stephen Schwarzman, who I have mentioned a few times in our shows as a good friend of Donald Trump's and a member of the CFR. So if Trump's fighting the globalists, why does he have all of these globalists in his administration? Now I just want to backtrack a bit and look at Evelyn D. Rothschild again. Born in 1931, British billionaire financier and member of the Rothschild family. Notice he is Sir Evelyn D. Rothschild because he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 1989. And take note, he also serves as Her Majesty's financial advisor. So he is the financial advisor to the Queen. I'm not going to go into the Rothschild family history and their banking dynasty here, but it's pretty well known how they wield enormous power in the financial world.
You were critical of Donald Trump and the way he handled his health care thing, saying it's a shame that Donald Trump is so proud of not reading, for he could learn a great deal about his present predicament over health care by consulting the history books. In other words, that things take time. I think that's what you were saying, right?
You have wonderful medical people here, wonderful doctors, wonderful hospitals. They're the people who should write the majority of the bill.
The majority of them are not happy with the
No, because they're not allowed.
now.
Because they're not allowed to participate. But that's why you have to sit down with a committee across the board and look at every angle and help the poor as much as you help the rich.
I'm going to pause that there for a minute. Just take note what Evelyn Rothschild said about helping the poor as much as helping the rich. You'll find this is a theme that runs through other things that he says. You'll find it through things that his wife, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, says. You'll also find it coming across in things that the cousin of Evelyn de Rothschild, Jacob Rothschild, says as well. Now remember, these folks are the richest people on the planet, billionaires, possibly trillionaires if you believe some of the estimates. This is socialism. It is something known as Fabian socialism, which we'll have to look at a little bit later. This is also something you'll find coming across through the Clintons. Now remember what Larry McDonald, the former US congressman, had to say about the supercapitalism and communism blend.
And this is something which I don't think people here who are in charge, if I may say, realize.
Your wife, Lady de Rothschild, was a very big backer, as were you, of Hillary Clinton, and even in 2008 didn't flip over Barack Obama. And I'm wondering whether that tension eased, or whether she looks back, you look back at the Obama years as good, bad, what?
Well, I think he did a pretty good job in certain areas, and obviously there are certain areas which one can always criticize. But I think one has to be
I think she hated him. Your wife.
I don't think that's fair, because
strongly disliked.
It's not for me to judge you. You should ask my wife directly.
But you didn't have that. I mean, right, when, in 2008, I assume you were supporting Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely.
And he ended up winning, obviously.
Absolutely.
You should be able to pick up from that basically the de Rothschilds, Evelyn and Lynn, are not particularly fond of either Obama or Trump. They're critical of both of them, ultimately. Now here's some more interesting information about Evelyn de Rothschild, who was born August 29th, 1931. He married Lynn Forrester in November 2000. She was introduced to him by Henry Kissinger at the 1998 Bilderberg Conference in Scotland, a meeting Sir Evelyn doesn't normally attend. And then further down here, according to EIR, the Clintons invited the married couple to spend their wedding night at the White House. And Lynn Forrester generously funded Bill Clinton's election campaigns. Now let's have a look at an article in the Evening Standard, which is about chocolates, really. The de Rothschilds on Donald Trump and chocolates, and being best friends with the Clintons. As regards the American lunatic, talking about Trump, he is dismayed by President Trump's recent decision to overturn Barack Obama's DACA Act. So, they're obviously not enamored with Donald Trump. Well, at least that's the impression that they're giving out, because they are friends with the Clintons. Best friends, apparently. And here saying, I think he's racist. The only reason he isn't anti-Semitic is because his son-in-law is Jewish. That's Evelyn speaking. The pair were introduced by Henry Kissinger, as we've mentioned before, at the Bilderberg Conference in Scotland in 1998, the annual meeting of the international super elite set up to promote transatlantic harmony after the war. Sir Evelyn says, the only thing you could say against the place where we met is, it's owned by Mr. Trump, Lady Lynn hoots. I don't think Bilderberg will ever meet there again, that's for sure. So that is interesting. The Bilderberg meeting was held in a venue owned by Donald Trump. But it seems clearly that the de Rothschilds don't like Donald Trump. That either they don't like Donald Trump or they're putting on a good act. But they're, very much friends with the Clintons. Best friends. Remember what I said earlier about the socialism? Look at this about Lynn Forrester from the same article. Her focus is now, aside from managing investments for the Economist Group, is on something she calls inclusive capitalism. And if you read through it is very much socialism. It's Fabian socialism. That's what they're promoting. Make no mistake about it, the Rothschilds are advocates for global governance. On the surface at least, they appear to be against Donald Trump. But remember Henry Kissinger, again, was this year at the Bilderberg meeting, along with some of Trump's own administration. People from the very swamp that Donald Trump is supposed to be draining. Among those was General McMaster, who is still listed as a member on the Council on Foreign Relations. Also, the Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross was supposedly invited to the Bilderberg meeting in June of 2017 as well, as several others. The Bilderberg Group is basically a shadow world government, and it is the most secretive club on earth pretty much. No one buys their way into it. Only the group's steering committee decides whom to invite, and they are only invited if they are adherents to a one world governance run by the top elites. They cannot bring anyone else with them, no partners. They can't answer questions of the media as well. When you see that the Rothschilds are best friends with the Clintons, that they're friends with John McCain, that they're friends with Henry Kissinger, and Henry Kissinger is friends with John McCain, it's difficult to see the Clintons and John McCain and some of these people going to jail, as so many people are expecting Donald Trump is going to do, in spite of what he said in his election campaign. Particularly if you combine that with the fact that Ivanka Trump and Chelsea Clinton have been very close friends for years as well. Now, one thing I want to do here is dispel the myth that the BRICS group is somehow anti-Rothschilds, that it is somehow fighting against the system that the Rothschilds banking families have set up.
Before joining my family firm, I wanted to see how it was done elsewhere. On my travels, my horizons were broadened and my eyes opened. And my very first strings of globalization, I was also encouraged by those experiences to serve in other capacities beyond my office at the bank. As chairman of St. Mary's Medical School, where Fleming invented penicillin, where it discovered, and chairman of the Economist newspaper, I was honored to introduce to China.
But they really are issues of the construction of a new world order. That's what this is about. And that's the sort of dialogue the Chinese are generally good at. And so a partnership between us is essential. A conflict between us is going to exhaust us both in tactical exercises that cannot be conclusive.
And the New World Order could satisfy both.
It has to satisfy both, because otherwise it will lead to tensions that will exhaust us both.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order.
The RMB situation, you mentioned a so-called currency problem. I mean, do you see the day in the next 5 years where it's fully convertible and flexible?
Well, you're talking to a person who's quite old. If I'm around in 5 years, I'd like to think that that is the case. I think we've all got to move towards that opportunity, and I think the challenge also is whether we should move towards an international currency.
It is also interesting to note that the term BRICS was first used by Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs in 2001 in a Global Economics paper number 66. So Goldman Sachs has major tie-ups with the Rothschilds, so the BRICS is not actually an opposition to the system. The City of London is ultimately the financial hub for the world. Don't forget, The Economist magazine in 1988 predicted a coming global currency around about 2018, which is interesting considering Evelyn de Rothschild's words in the video we just heard. Note, The Economist magazine is 50% owned by the English branch of the Rothschilds family. So Evelyn de Rothschild was chairman of the company from 1972 to 1989. The Economist takes an editorial stance of classical and economic liberalism that supports free trade, globalisation, free immigration and cultural liberalism, such as same-sex marriage and drug liberalisation. The Economist was founded by British businessman and banker James Wilson in 1843, and it is interesting to note that in January 2012 The Economist launched a new weekly section devoted exclusively to China, the first new countries section since the introduction of a section about the United States in 1942. Karl Marx deemed The Economist the European organ of the aristocracy of finance. It would be no surprise that Karl Marx would have had tie-ups there because he was actually third cousin to the Rothschilds and he was paid to write the Communist Manifesto and was actually financed by the Rothschilds. Many believe that Karl Marx was actually very much a part of the Illuminati and was a Luciferian or Satanist himself, not an atheist. There is not complete unity even amongst the powerful elite. Here is Jacob Rothschild, who many people believe is the head of the Illuminati, speaking.
Well, I know to Rothschild, unity is very important.
It is important, but unity is a difficult word. I mean, they have now a whole range of businesses, some of which compete with one another, but they have cross interests. So we work it out.
Remember earlier I spoke of Hegelian dialectic and the setting up of opposites? Two that are often quoted as being opposite are Donald Trump and George Soros, and yet we find that they have actually had considerable financial dealings. Here is an interesting article on a website called The Infinite Unknown, which has uncovered a lot of information on the Trump and Soros dealings. Why did George Soros forgive Donald Trump as much as $312 million in debt for no apparent reason? Why would Soros give what amounts to a massive debt relief to Trump during a financially successful period in Trump's life? Are these men friends, enemies, or business partners? And I would like to add, remember the Hegelian dialectic? Are they actually opposites, or are they just being portrayed as opposites? It is also important to note the connection between the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, which goes back a long way. In 2012, the Financial Times reported that RIT Capital Partners, part of the Rothschild banking dynasty, has bought a stake in Rockefeller Financial Services. It reported that RIT, that's the Rothschilds, were acquiring a 37% equity in the Rockefeller Financial Services. In a press release, the late David Rockefeller said, "Lord Rothschild and I have known each other for 5 decades. The connection between our two families remains very strong. I'm delighted to welcome Jacob and RIT as shareholders and partners in the ongoing development of our investment management and wealth advisory business." This now brings me to the third aspect I mentioned earlier, the as above, so below, which is dualism, and you'll find that throughout all of occultism, all the mystery schools. And you can see it here. There is Jacob Rothschild and David Rockefeller with the yin and yang type sculpture, the black and the white there in the corner, which they are showing you that they are dualists and with the as above so below type philosophy. You will also notice that there are 2 partridges, etc. on the mantelpiece. Everything is symmetrical or dualistic. And note also that the clock has the hands at 9:04, which if you add that up, that equals 13. And the number 13 is very significant to occultists. As you know, nothing is done by accident with these people. As many people will know, the US dollar is full of symbolism, and it comes from the ancient mystery schools and probably Freemasonry. Note how many times 13 appears on the US dollar. 13 leaves, 13 berries, 13 arrows, 13 stripes on the coat of arms, 13 stars above the head of the eagle or phoenix, 13 letters in E pluribus unum, 13 rows of steps, 13 letters in Anno et Coptuus. Novus Ordo Seclorum translates as out of many one. That's also 13 characters. Now, is the American eagle actually a phoenix? We will come to the phoenix again a bit later, but keep that in mind. We also have the all-seeing eye and the pyramid. The combination of these symbols is more than a coincidence, according to 33rd degree Freemason Manly P. Hall. There is only one possible origin for these symbols, and that is the secret societies which came to the United States 150 years before the Revolutionary War. Among those who helped design the Great Seal of the United States, the following are known to have been Masons: Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, William Churchill Houston, and William Barton. Remember earlier I showed you a clip of Jacob Rothschild being interviewed on Phoenix Television by a Chinese reporter? Phoenix Satellite Television Holdings Limited, or Phoenix Television, is a Hong Kong-based, Cayman Islands registered Mandarin and Cantonese language television broadcaster that serves the Chinese mainland and Hong Kong along with other markets with substantial Chinese viewers. Its parent company is 21st Century Fox, and surprise, surprise, since September 2001, Phoenix Television has been broadcasting a range of United Nations television programming, including 57 episodes of UN in Action. It's no coincidence that the Phoenix is the name, because the Phoenix is long associated with ancient mystery schools, which of course the Rothschilds are allegedly a part of. And we've seen the Phoenix on the US dollar, we've seen it on the cover of The Economist magazine as well. It is also no coincidence that the Rothschilds have an affinity and an association with the ancient symbols of the all-seeing eye and the pyramid.
So we're working not only on a big flagship project, we do this very occasionally, like the Supreme Court.
Jacob Rothschild was of course referring to the Israel Supreme Court, which the Rothschilds family agreed to donate the building under 3 conditions: that they were to choose the plot of land, they were to choose their own architect, and no one would ever know the price of the construction. And it is very obviously full of Illuminati symbolism. Too much to talk about here, except you will notice immediately the pyramid with the eye in it is a prominent feature of the Israeli Supreme Court. I want to state categorically here that I do fully believe in Israel's right to exist. I'm not anti-Israel. I do also believe that it is by the divine hand of God that Israel is what it is today, with Jews predominantly living there. I believe that it was by divine appointment that Jews were gathered from the 4 corners of the earth back to the land that is known today again as Israel. But I'm also aware that along with the wheat, as Jesus said, there will be tares that grow amongst the wheat, and we have them throughout the formation of the state of Israel, even though I also believe in the right of Israel to choose Jerusalem as its capital. But nevertheless, you cannot deny the fact that the Rothschilds and their money played a large role in the formation of Israel and still plays a role today. And as Jesus said, the tares will grow up with the wheat.
I know how proud you are to be Jewish.
Yes.
I know how Zionist you are.
Right. And we now have 45 people in Jerusalem and a large number of projects, including the project which I've been now working on for 15 years, which is the new National Library in Israel. I mean, half of my family were very against the idea of home for the Jewish people in Palestine. And the other half were for it. Now, that situation will never go away.
I want to quote something here on Evelyn de Rothschild. Now, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, who is known to have little time for the policies of the current right-wing Israeli government, hopes to establish the firm foundations of the fledgling Palestinian economy. He said, "I feel very strongly that if one has a multi-ethnic community, you must try to help all sides of the community to try to better themselves. A good economic base for Palestine must be beneficial for security and peace in the area." That's a 1998 quote.
We've spent a lot of money with the government in setting up employment centres for Arabs, because that's one of the big problems is unemployment.
As I've already stated, I am not against Israel, and it appears that the Rothschilds' money does good in Israel, at least on the surface. But it also must be remembered that Jerusalem will be the centre of end-time events, including Matthew 24, where it says, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." So, there is an overall plan to install an Antichrist in Jerusalem, and many people believe that that is the role and the goal of the Illuminati, of which the Rothschild family was instrumental in setting up. We have an article here that says, "Trump guided by God's hand to build third temple," and this is one thing I've got to say that does concern me. President Donald Trump's epic proclamation acknowledging Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish people was a major step towards establishing the Third Temple and bringing the Messianic era, said a number of Jewish activists working to rebuild the Holy Temple. What he did last night was an enormous step in bringing the temple. Asif Freid, official spokesman for the United Temple Movement, an association of organizations working towards making the Third Temple a reality, he told Breaking Israel News. Freid compared Trump's role to that of Cyrus, the Persian king who ended the Babylonian exile and helped build the second Jewish temple. There have been amazing advances towards bringing the temple this year. It was clear that Trump was part of that process, guided by the hand of Hashem, God, Freid declared. We've also heard new apostolic, supposed prophets, calling Donald Trump King Cyrus before the election and post-election. And so, folks, this is, to me, some sort of a concern to be watching for. Yaakov Heyman, the United Temple Movement chairman, saw Trump's statement as part of a historical progression, joining a number of major shifts in modern history for Israel and the Jewish people. The people of Israel are returning to their roots, while simultaneously the non-Jews of the world are realizing the authenticity of our claim to the Temple Mount and our right to build a Jewish temple as a house of prayer for all nations, Heyman explained. House of prayer for all nations? This is part of the globalist religious movement that will come, the uniting of religions.
We're here today to celebrate Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights. In a few moments we will light the ceremony Diya, symbolizing the victory of light over darkness and good or evil.
The one who they think will be their Messiah will actually be the anti-Messiah, Antichrist, who will sit in that temple. This has always been the goal of the Illuminati and other secret societies basing themselves on the ancient mystery schools. Underlying their beliefs is a Luciferian philosophy. And the goal of the New World Order is ultimately nothing other than to install the man who will represent Lucifer, the light bearer, as the ruler of a one-world government.
Freer from the threat of terror, and today that new world is struggling to be born. A world quite different